Good afternoon. Just afternoon. If we can start the meeting. First of all, we've got apologies for absence. David Minnery is going to be about 15 minutes later, I understand. You know no more, right? Has anybody any disclosable pecuniary interests?
Once we get to the under the line, I will declare a prejudicial interest, or certainly an interest in, I think it's 24. The much
24, okay.
mediation scheme.
That's noted. Item 3 is that the minutes. Can I sign those? All the copies can I sign those into the record of what took place?
Yeah.
Moved, seconded. All in favour? Anybody against? Right, carried, thank you. Now, item 4, public questions. We've got a question from Alison McKittrick. You've had an answer. Would you like to?
I haven't seen the answer.
We'll leave you a few minutes just to read that, and if you want a supplementary, you can come up and ask it.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll move on, then I'll come back to
Thank
you.
you very much.
That's okay. So item 5 is matters referred from scrutiny. There are none. Item 6, reports from scrutiny committee. The final report on the budget task and finish group. Who's going to report on that?
Thank you very much. Since Hannah was actually chair of the Task and Finish Group, I think it'd be helpful if Hannah came up
By the way, items 7, 9 and 10 have been deferred to the special budget meeting we're having later this month. Okay, Anna?
Thank you very much. Can I start by saying thank you very much to all of the portfolio holders and directors and representatives that spoke to the Task and Finish Group. We've had a very short time to look at the 16-17 budget, and we focused on the 16-17 budget, but clearly the ongoing financial strategy very much informs that budget. So we were also inquiring into the financial strategy as it was seen by directorates and portfolio holders. We had 2 very intensive sessions, and we felt that everybody who came to speak with us was frank and candid about the challenges that are faced by the council going forward. So thank you for their time and for their openness. The circumstances the council find itself in obviously extremely difficult. And the report, which you all have read, made some conclusions regarding the 16-17 budget, which our primary concerns really are whether or not the budget will be met going forward, and whether or not the impacts of that budget are as yet been recognised. And there are obviously challenges going forward with great cuts that are being imposed from central government. We identified that there was some misconceptions in the budget, but we're glad to see that all directorates are working hard to make sure that where those areas are identified, they are very much working to make sure that those budgets will be met. In terms of sort of more general strategic things, we are concerned, I think, that the budget and financial strategy very much looks at cuts, and there's not very much emphasis on income generation by all the council, whether that's spend to save or taxes or fees and charges or innovative ways to for the council to undertake activities that are income generating. And we are also concerned that going forward the impacts of both 16-17 budget and the ongoing strategy, how it will actually affect people's lives, is not yet known, partly because some of the discussions and negotiations that need to be made with service providers those discussions perhaps haven't yet been made. So we would welcome, all efforts really by Cabinet A to reduce the reliance on cuts on financial structure, and also to make sure that the impacts of cuts are clear going forward. One of the key strategies, I think, for the financial, one of the key pillars is that if services are no longer going to be provided by Shropshire Council, then how the coastal voluntary sector or towns and parish councils are going to take up some of that service delivery. And if that is indeed a key sort of strategy for this council, then it needs to be very sure that it's providing a framework of services to support that. But it just doesn't let these services sink into oblivion if there isn't the capacity and the resilience and the resource in the community to do it. So that needs to be transitioned and quite carefully monitored. And the other key concern, I suppose, with the strategy is that so many of the council services are interrelated that if you're cutting some preventative or non-statutory services, is that going to actually quite profound impact on the council's ability to control its demand for services and control what's offered in the budget? So I think those would be our main conclusions, so that's it.
Thank you, Anna. I think we'd like to thank you for this because I think you brought some very, very good points up. In fact, some of them we're actually starting to, Chief Executive and I, we're already starting to work on some of the suggestions and that you actually brought out in your task and finish group. So I think you've done a really good job, and I think we need to take note of all these recommendations. Anybody want to speak to the report?
You've just taken away some of the things I was going to say, so not much left to add to that except to offer thanks to you for the splendid piece of work and the way you brought out the key factors. I'm delighted that everyone was frank and candid, and I hope also they were transparent at the same time. And as Malcolm's the leaders just said, that we take up on much of the recommendations that are encapsulated in 2.A through to I, and thank you very much. We should be taking them forward into our thinking. Thank you very much indeed. I'll move that, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. Hannah, I would congratulate you and your team on this piece of work, because I think it's been extremely helpful for us as we approach yet more difficult times and choppy waters. So it's been a really valuable piece of work. Actually, the leader is completely right. Work is already starting. We had a big meeting today with over 70 town and parish councils to actually sit down with them and start discussing with them exactly, what they feel that they can do with us, and indeed maybe take over from us. So we will be, I think, taking up a lot of your recommendations, and I think it's extremely useful to us as a cabinet to know that you are actually feeding in really positive stuff to us, because it does give us plenty to work on, and these kind of reports are really very helpful, I think.
Thanks, sir. Alan, did you?
I'm going to make a general point on it, but I'm pleased that some attention is being paid to it, although clearly in the timescales it was too late in the day to have any sort of close look on that 16-17 budget to have any impact on it. And there's a lesson to be learned perhaps, and we ought to be re-establishing this or something similar to look at in depth and in detail in the same sort of forum that we had for this at the 17, 18, 18, 19, and I hope that can happen. But before we leave this item, we've seen lots of new speculation in the press about what was achieved from the lobbying of the government related to their funding, and I wonder if it's opportune at this stage for you, Malcolm, to make a statement about that so we can hear it and understand some of the implications.
Well, I'm quite happy to do that for what it's worth. Daniel Kowalski, as you know, was being fully supportive of the council's position. It culminated in a conversation between me and Greg Clark for about 25 minutes yesterday afternoon, where they gave certain gentlemen's agreements assurances, which based on that I accepted, and as Daniel accepted my assurances. So I presume the bill will pass through the House today. One of those assurances is that he did say he was very conscious about the way the way the government was assessing the needs about elderly care, and admitted to me that perhaps there are better ways of doing this by actually each individual council being assessed on actual need about what kind of money they need to carry on with adult care. And to that event, they're forming a governmental panel to look at the way that the grants will be distributed in future. And he actually asked, could our Chief Treasury Officer, James Morton, be part of that parliamentary grouping that's going to make the decisions on how those assessments are made in the formula in future, which I think will be an absolutely brilliant job for this council if we're actually there in government in the panel that's going to start assessing what we actually need to properly fund adult care. So that was really good news. He's also said he wants to come up and meet us in the next 2 or 3 weeks, which we're in the process of arranging, where we can clearly lay down pensioners a pence what our problems was, and had assurances that he would look in detail at what our problems were with a view to seeing what he could do about it in the following year. But there's nothing other than emails, copies of emails, to substantiate any of this. I'm hopeful that it will happen, and I think it can be nothing but a big improvement. That's about as far as I can actually go on that, sir.
Well, if I may just come back on that, Malcolm. I mean, clearly, in the press, it's quoted an extra £8 million coming from government into our budget, which will help to some extent. Although we are talking about 70 or 80 million pounds worth of cuts, so the impact of that is going to be relatively slight. And in fact, you yourself have hinted in the press that it won't make all that much difference, and that there will still be a number of what are classed as red cuts that will go ahead. Quite apart from the fact that many of the green and amber cuts that are being proposed have long-term disadvantages and severe impact on our services. So the other thing that comes to mind is that there's lots of smoke and mirrors surrounding this whole area, and in the past we've known that this government and other governments have issued statements about new money, when in fact it's just been a recycling of grants and money that's actually been in the pipeline anyway. So could you tell us what is the actual increase in the available resources that we will have for the budget? Will that be 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year? And how assured are we that this is new money, as opposed to something else that's already there, hidden in the background? This will be new money for the county.
Yeah, the statement that was made in Parliament, I think on Friday, by Greg Clark, it gives us actually £5.5 million more this year and £3 million more the following year. It is, I believe, is totally new money. I think they've listened to what the rural counties have actually been saying and have responded to that. But unfortunately, as far as Shropshire's case is concerned, we've now found we've got an overspend on our adult care budget, which will take all of that money to take up. So we're now looking at a situation almost the same as it was before the statement was made, but we won't have the extra, I think, £6-7 million on top of what we're already envisaging to save on the elderly care budget. So it really puts us back to to square one with that. Because our overspend on the elderly care budget, I've asked the Chief Executive to look whether this is specially to applying to Shropshire, or whether it's a national trend about this extra expenditure on elderly care. I think there is a debate to have with the health service about how we can bring more preventative measures in to stop people actually going into hospital and moving through the system and coming out at the end and being our responsibility. So we're doing those investigations to see if it is a Shropshire thing, which I don't think it actually is. I think it's more of a national trend about elderly care budgets expanding and going on because the amount of people going through the system. But that is work that we're going to do urgently in the near future to find that out. And we find out if it is a Shropshire-based occurrence, that we're going to have to talk with health to see how between us working in partnership we can actually remit this. So that's where we are. Okay.
I'm sure people will be interested in this. It's been portrayed rather differently in the press yesterday, and no doubt earlier today. But what you're saying, given the overspend in adult care that's moving on, that there won't be any impact on this money in terms of the cuts existing in the current year. That there may be 3 million for the following year, but perhaps given the experience of overspend on adult care on almost an annual basis, that's likely to be nothing. So, in a sense, the impact on reductions in the draconian cuts that are going to happen in Shropshire is negligible.
I'm going to ask James just to give you the facts and figures on this, so you've got it straight from the horse's mouth, as it were. If you can just explain where this extra money is actually likely to be spent on the elderly care, James, so that we absolutely clear.
Before we do that, Mark, yeah, I just want to add that, is this working? It is now. I just want to add that some of this detail that Malcolm is talking about, it is right to mention it in the context of setting our budget. The reason we've rolled over the financial strategy to next week is we are still working through that detail. So there is a projected overspend on adult social care, and we're working on that. We're not in this position as we speak in this meeting, as we don't have the detail. We haven't put that to members, and that detail is not in front of Cabinet. So I'm happy for James to give you details of the grants that will come forward and talk in general terms about the adult social care, but it needs to be in the context of that report, needs to be brought properly in front of Cabinet in a week's time.
So, just on the bring the picture in relation to the grants. There's Rural Services Delivery Grant, which has been added into the settlement over the 4-year period, and that has been increased for 2 years, for 16-17 and for 17-18. So, and then there is an additional transition grant, which is worth £600,000, which has been added in and again in those same 2 years, 16-17, 17-18. So there is a one-off block of money, which is worth £5.5 million in 16-17, and a second one-off block of money worth £3 million in the 17-18 financial year. The pressures in adult social care, you will be aware, as has been reported over the year, that there is an overspend in adult social care in the current financial year. What we then did was work through what those projections look like in future years, and they were based on the level of growth that we were seeing within the current year. That, if you look at the monitor that was taken at period 6, and then there will be the period 3, the quarter 3 monitor will be going through the Cabinet this time next week. What that's showing is that there is a developing trend over the year where that adult social care expenditure has gone up, and when we then look to see how that relates to future years, that means we've had to go back and look at those projections. So that's the point that the leader was referring to in terms of what that growth looks like in the 16-17 year, 17-18 year, and beyond. And initial estimates were that this is running into the millions. So there's significant growth that's gone into those areas, but this could be in addition to that growth that we've already built in. So it's only right to sort of flag that up, that although there is additional grant that is available next year, and we welcome that, actually the position of the council as a whole, particularly adult social care, is continually moving, and we have to take account of that within those objectives.
I'm anxious that we actually move back onto the agenda. I think it's right I made that statement. I think it's right that you asked for it. Having done that, now we're actually discussing the scrutiny panel's report. So can we get back, Roger, back to the scrutiny panel's report, please?
Thank you, Chairman. We'll have comments next week when the revenue paper comes, because, as always, I will be looking at the areas which are highlighted as red, where there are no plans to deliver the plan and the one-off money that is used. But to get back to the paper that's before us this morning, what I put my hand up for is to highlight, so that we do not lose it, in future years there are some priority areas which has been highlighted as saying that those areas we, Shropshire Council, need to spend the money on. But there is a very important sentence in the report, and it's on page 5, and it says non-statutory services provided by or organised through the Commissioning Directorate enable other directorates to achieve their statutory responsibilities. Those areas, I assume, are not prioritised, so they are liable to cuts, but they will, from this and from our knowledge of it, will reflect on the deliverability of the statutory services for older people, children's services and things like this. And I would like assurance that that will be looked at and taken forward, and it's already being looked at in preparation for next week's paper.
I think we take it all on board, Roger. In fact, one of the things we are doing, we're developing an administration strategy about how to take the authority from A to B with meaningful markers down the road that we can measure. So we're already aware of that. You know, one of our priorities is vulnerable people. That's the top priority for us, which we're actually working on. So I think that's where we are. Can we come back on the paper then, Alan?
I'm looking at the paper, and on page 7, or the larger number of the word in page 19, it says, based on the information and feedback provided to the Task and Finish Group, the Task and Finish Group believe that there's a risk of slippage in the 2016-17 budget, and therefore implications for future budgets, and that's precisely what we were talking about earlier. It seems to me that the adult care budget is out of control, and we're finding millions here, as the Treasurer says, and it does have implications for what people are being led to believe in the press, not the press's fault, that somehow we've got manna from heaven, and that the government's is going, and Daniel Kaczynski is in somehow going to bring alleviation of many of the cuts. And as I said before, from what you've been saying and from what we know and expect, the draconian cuts are still with us, and this has had very little impact on that. And that's all I want to say about it.
Yeah. Thank you, Alan. I think we're going to go over the debate that we probably will be having next week when we discuss the budget. But what I have to say, that the government has listened to what the rural counties are saying. They have actually put new money into those concerns. And after my talk with Greg Clark yesterday, I think they totally understand Shropshire's problems and beyond, and are going to make moves to redress that situation. And as far as Daniel Kaczynski goes, I think he's been an absolute star. He's supported Shropshire right down to the end. I've got nothing but praise from the manner in which him as Shrewsbury's Conservative MP has actually performed, and I think it's a great deal of thanks to him that we've had these assurances from Greg Clark. Anyway, it has been moved that we Roger?
Only a quick one, Chairman, is that I think we also need to pay attention, and I'll pay it in public, to Cecilia Mockley and Heather Kidd for the work that they've done for the rural authorities over the many years, trying to highlight the poor funding that Shropshire has. So that is cross-party, so I think that needs to be noted as well.
I would agree with Roger. I think Cindy's done absolutely sterling work down in London on all of this, but I think all of us have been working really, really hard and a lot of lobbying to try and arrive at a satisfactory outcome. Anyway, it's been moved that we note and accept this report. Is that seconded? All those in favour? Anybody against? Right, that's carried. Thank you. Item 7 is being... Oh yes, you'll come back to the public question now. Would you like to make a supplementary? I'm sorry about that.
One very, I just want to thank you for the reply. In the discussions I've been with for a few years, and we've had many discussions with the Shropshire Council. It says here the council's objective is to transfer management and operation to other operators and community organisations. I've never been aware of that. But what I did want was my supplementary question is what are the implications on the management contracts for the leisure facilities, especially the circular and the Community Leisure Trust, in the light of the budget?
I think perhaps we'll need the portfolio to write to you.
I'll respond to that in a note to you from that. Thank you for the question.
Item 7 is being referred to the special budget meeting. Item 8, capital monitoring. The report is before you. Does everybody want to speak to that, Roger?
Thank you, Chairman. I have to say I'm disappointed by this report. There are a number of areas where I think Shropshire Council could have, and Cabinet officer could have been innovative and actually put some capital aside to actually invest in the future so that we can get future revenues from it. Other authorities are doing that, Shropshire Council isn't. To highlight one or two areas, I see the empty properties, which was highlighted in the previous one. The agreed budget for that was 1.2 million. We've actually spent £309,000. And we were told at the last meeting that if we invested and got an outside contractor in to do it, we could have £500,000 extra revenue coming per year from the new homes bonus. So to see that 1.2 and only 309,000, then next year I think it's 400,000. We look at that, we look at the small business scheme. We spent 500,000 in 14-15 and there's 100,000 in next year. But the budget for that was 1.15 million. That was to assist small businesses in Shropshire to expand, take on more work, to actually help the economy of Shropshire. Street lighting, LED, we're investing £141,000 in that in capital. I've got 2 parish councils that took out public work loan board loans for it, and they are already getting reduced cost of electricity, which will more than pay for both the loan repayment and the interest. Shropshire Council just isn't doing that. They're leaving the lights on around the roundabouts, yes. They're turning the lights off after midnight, yes. And there is some concern about it. My understanding of the economics is that LED lights burn less electricity than even Shropshire Council does turning the lights off. So an investment in that would give a fantastic return. Telecare, we've heard about the older people's budget, but we spent £72,000 and £49,000 last year. There was a working party that looked at that, Telecare, introducing it, so that older people could live in their own homes longer. We were going to invest quite a lot of money in that. We haven't. And I could go on. Disabled Facilities Grant, £1.4 million spent this year in it. Next year, in the capital, it shows £400,000, a reduction of £1 million. What that will affect on Shropshire, I don't know. And I haven't even mentioned broadband, and I may make mention that year. I can see no capital allocation for broadband in future years. BD UK are bringing their money in, but I can't see any matching investment or any capital investment that Shropshire Council is making in that in future years. And to me, if we want to invest in the economy and get some more businesses in Shropshire, to bring in entrepreneurs into Shropshire so that they start working, and they work in the rural areas, and we really start to motor and show that Shropshire is not only a nice place to live, but it's a nice place to work because we support you. this is a disappointment. I could go on and pick out other areas, but I am disappointed in it that there's no innovation to see where we're going to invest for the future so that we can invest to save.
Roger, I'm a bit surprised you brought that up because you sat in a meeting with me this morning with the parish councils where this was actually discussed quite some length. It might surprise you now that I actually agree with you with some of what you're actually saying. It seems to me that the times are changing and we are moving in a different direction, but it seems to me that we want to prioritise where we can use capital expenditure to generate future revenue savings to give us a sustainable onward budget. I think one of the first decisions I made was to stay here because it was the cheapest accommodation we could get in Shrewsbury, and also to put solar panels on the roof, which is going to reduce our revenue cost by £30,000 a year. So I think you'll find a lot of the observations just made on what is really an historical look back on document will be changing, because I do support some of what you're saying regarding maximising capital expenditure to maximise the revenue from it, but then there has to be accompanied by a proper evaluation of the scheme, by a proper business plan to how we actually achieve that. Sonia.
Thank you, Lido. I just wanted to make a comment on the LED lighting and park night lighting. When we actually undertook the process of going into park night lighting, LED lighting, we did look at it at the time, and the costs were prohibitive. The cost of LED lighting has come down over the years, and we have now actually started doing our replacements of LED lighting. When we're replacing complete blocks of lighting, it is LED lighting. And also any new lighting that goes in on estates or anything like that, that's part of the procedures that the developer has to put in LED lighting. So we are actually following on with LED lighting now.
Thank you. No?
Just want to come back on one with Roger to say I'm taking your comments as a support if I can. Because I did say at the scrutiny committee, and I also said when we did the task and finish on the finances about the role of the empty property officers and how vital they were to Shropshire Council. Because if we invest in them, they will bring a lot of money back into the council, so why would we want to get rid of them?
Yeah.
So I think that point has already been well made, and I've taken it up with officers, and the report has been produced. It will be coming to informal cabinet for discussion, which I think will support everything that you and I are saying about those posts. Just for the benefit of the wider audience, the empty property officers, the investment comes into new homes bonus. So if every empty property comes back into use, we can claim new homes bonus for it. There's an external company called Capacity Grid who approached the council and said that we reckon we can bring you £500,000 back in 1 year, the first year, just by going out there and vetting your empty properties, and we think that some of your empty properties are not empty, so you can claim the new homes bonus. We're still going to make a decision on that, but I think equally we could do that because it's on a no-win, no-fee basis. So if they earn us the 400,000, I think we have to pay them back £30,000. So why would you not do it? It makes sense. But equally, we need to invest in our own officers to make sure they can do the work and take it further, not just through empty properties, but also through council tax as well. So I'm taking that, Roger, that for support from yourself that what I'm saying is correct.
Okay.
Sorry, Karen, was it?
Thank you. I just wanted to come back. On the telecare. You're quite right, Roger. We have got to be more innovative, and we've got to think of ways. And we've been talking about telecare now for some years. We're in discussions about social care to talk about how we can invest in reducing falls, which is a great contributor to old people being admitted into hospital, and then a very poor long-term prognosis. We're looking at how we can keep our old people staying at home, and how we can use our customer contact centre with follow-up calls. So you're quite right, Roger, we do need to be innovative, and we are trying to do that with our colleagues out at Social Care.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, David. With everyone else supporting the process, I'd just like to go against the grain if I may. Roger knows full well the ins and outs of the broadband programme, having sat on the Partnership Board, which met most recently last week. We have enough capital funding to complete the programme. What is holding us up is the European sign-off, which we're waiting for full details of from the EU. Of course, the 11.38 million which we have from BD UK in the form of a grant, if we would have gone down Roger's original suggestion, taking out a full loan to match fund it, we would have been in a hell of a mess right now. So Roger knows the details, and we're just disappointed you raised it.
All right. Thank you, Chairman. If we'd have gone down there, we would have put broadband into many small businesses. I was at the meeting with Malcolm this morning, and at least one parish councillor got up and said, I have people in my area that want to convert garages, convert a spare room, and put there and I'll start working from home, and I can't because I haven't got broadband. If we'd have matched it, we would have put in an extra over £20 million into broadband in Shropshire, and it would have been an entirely different place to where it is now.
Thank you, Roger. Okay, so we've got recommendations before us, A, B, C. Shall we move? Shall we move that? Seconded. All those in favour accepting the report? Thank you. So 9, 10 and 11 have been deferred into the special cabinet budget meeting. So we now move on to item 11, estimated collection funds outturn. It sees as it is, Roger.
Thank you, Chairman. I noticed that the NHS, the health service, are going to gain some extra income from it because they're not going to pay business rates on some of it, which is going to affect the income for Shropshire Council. But I do notice that as a bonus, Shropshire Council is getting an extra £3.5 million from the renewable energy schemes rates, which is something I don't think was fully expected. So I work it out that even with this loss from the health service, from the collection fund, we're actually going to be £400,000 in surplus. If we take the collection fund surplus, the non-domestic rate, and the £3.5 million in the renewable energy schemes, whether we use it all or leave some there, it does do a lot of balancing out. But I'm open to the officers to correct me.
Well, I'm going to let James answer that, but I can tell you, they give you one and you take away with another sometimes.
Oh, I know.
It is very complicated the way that this is worked through, but fundamentally there is a surplus on the council tax collection fund, and there is a deficit on the business rate collection fund. We do benefit from renewable energy properties and premises. Those that are defined in that way are on the basis that the incentive is that 100% of all business rates relating to property that's been identified that way it is retained by the local authority. So normally we retain 49% of that, 1% would go to the fire service and 50% would go to national government. We retain 100% of that. So the surplus on the council tax collection fund and the 100% renewable energy that we retain does help to offset the business rate reduction. The issue is because of the medical practices and the NHS trust charitable status issue is that those appeals can be brought in and go back for 6 years. And on that basis, we need to put a provision in place for the whole of those 6 years for all of those potential appeals that need to be made. And the scale of that is £20 million, of which 50% would be the government's issue, 1% goes to the fire service, and the element that we're retained by Shropshire Council, 49%, is offset by that collection fund surplus and by that 100% renewable. Overall, we're £2.8 million worse off as a result of that for the 16-17.
Okay. Well, somebody move that we accept the recommendations laid out in 2. So seconded. All those in favour? Right, that's carried. Thank you. We now move on to item 12, income review of fees and charges. They're down laid in the report card in front of you, Roger.
Thank you, Chairman. 2 or 3 items from this. I see on page 39, 1.17, it says there is currently ongoing a member-led review of parking provision and associated charges. I'm not sure who sits on this. Could we be informed about who actually sits on this? Because I'm not sure that I'm not sure that it's cross-party, so I'm interested in hearing what is being discussed there and understanding it. I see that Shire Services are on a break-even contract. Shire Services actually get contracts from outside the authority. So, okay, we supply services to schools and we don't really want to make a profit on it. But those services that are outside the county and they bid for contracts, I would have hoped they were actually doing more than break even. And then on planning, I see the extra costs, and it has come up elsewhere that we're getting more money in planning fees, but I am aware that some parish councils are writing in and are concerned about the extra costs that they are incurring because of the number of planning appeals which are being raised, and they're having to come along. And one parish council in my own area actually put money out and actually got professional help in doing it. But Shropshire Council, for some reason, seem loath to put in claims for costs against developers when they go to appeal. Developers will always put in claims for costs. But where is Shropshire Council actually lodging their claim to say, why are you doing this? Let's put a claim in. And maybe it's some of the parish councils as well who are there defending it and sticking up for their own local people. Maybe they can get some of the costs back as well.
Okay, now do you want to answer that?
I'm more than happy to answer the last one around the planning fees, because I raised it a while ago. From now on, pretty well all planning appeals will get a cost for us going forward, because I think it's the only way we're going to get the message out there to developers and applicants that actually, now that our SAMDEV's in place, we've had several checks on the 5-year land supply through public hearings, then we do not need to hear it again the following week at another appeal. I had a meeting only this week with I'll say a major agent in the county to explain my frustration of what had been going on. He gave me his assurance that he accepted we had the 5-year land supply, and those schemes that were in the system would actually work their way through, and after that there would be less appeals coming forward. We looked at the appeals the other week, and I think in 2013 we had 50 appeals. Last year it was something like 75 appeals. It's way over 120 in the last 12 months, so clearly it's gone way high. But you know as well, Roger, that is partly to do with the process of the MPPF, the SAMDEV, all the things that have come up at the same time, which means for any developer, what have they got to lose if we refused it, they appealed it. But we didn't have the evidence in place to defend ourselves to put appeal costs in. We are now, and I think even last week, as recent as last week, there was an appeal where we asked for costs against a 5-year land supply, and I know that the inspector at the beginning of the meeting chucked out the 5-year land supply issue. So I'm expecting us to get the fees paid, and we will continue to do that from here on in.
Okay, I'm going to ask George to answer your question on the car parking committee.
Just to clarify that, the point you raised, Roger, on 1.17, the car park review is being undertaken by officers, but last year the former leader delegated the member to lead on that to be Councillor David Roberts, working alongside the portfolio holder. Obviously, since the recent changes to the cabinet responsibilities, and the deputy portfolio holder, which has car parking responsibilities, which is Councillor Peter Adams, we just need to bring that back together again with regards to that. But it's officers alongside the relevant portfolio holder, deputy portfolio holder.
Thank you, Chairman. So really it's administration members are involved. There's nobody from outside the administration involved in this. So even though it says it's currently a member-led review, if it is member-led, then we need to have conversations outside maybe. It should surely be cross-party so that there's equal representation.
We obviously are thinking of changes from the past, Roger, and that they will come through. I think the fact that we had a report earlier today from one of your members chairing a very important task and finish group and a really good job of it, I think we should understand that. But I think also we must understand that by 2020 that we're going to be reliant on council tax, income generation and the business rate to support some specific grants to support the revenue budget. So income is going to play an ever increasing part in our revenue raising ideas. So you may be no doubt whatsoever that we shall be looking at where we can improve on income generation across the piece, because that's the only way we're going to get finance to actually run the services that we need to be running. So you needn't have any suspicion on that. Anyway, can somebody move that we accept that item 2, the recommendation? Move seconded. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. We now move on to Treasury Strategy, item 13. There's a very full, detailed report in front of you. Does anybody want to speak to this? I think it's quite self-explanatory. Now, somebody move, accept the recommendations. Seconded. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Then we have the Treasury Management update Q3. Does anybody want to speak to that? Then again, it's really a technical paper. So move it. Seconded. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. The Q3 performance report, Councillor Mark.
Reports before you, Chairman, for the Q3 2015-16. Overall, the performance of the council has remained stable throughout the year. That might seem remarkable, but it has nevertheless been so, with no significant variation in any of the measures. This is probably great testament to the hard work of the staff who continue to strive to deliver quality services against all the challenges that we continue to face. Members may have seen Appendix 1, the third quarter transformation data, where we're actually showing an underspend on the period of 121,000. Generally, I would be far more concerned if that was an overspend and believe this to be well within a reasonable margin of error. Members are asked to consider the underlying emerging issues in the recommendations of the paragraph 2 and identify any performance areas they would like to further consider. I welcome any comment that they would make.
Thank you, Chairman. It is 121,000, which I was going to highlight. The information that's come out today about the Q3 revenue paper, which is now postponed until next week, and the difference between this and Q2, when there's been a real change around in the council finances, I'm not sure how the 121,000 underspend has been achieved. Congratulations, it is needed, but I wonder if it will be there in relationship to the paper that's being produced next week, which will include the Q3 revenue there, because obviously there's some costs in adult social care which has only recently been identified. So I wonder if the Cabinet member can actually confirm that that 121,000 is still correct.
Chairman, I think you will, and Roger will give me a little bit of latitude in that I only took over the portfolio just about 10 days ago, and I think that, Roger, you'll have to wait for for those figures to come in due course. I think we'll all look at them with some considerable interest. But thank you for your congratulations. I think it more goes to the staff, as I've already alluded to, rather than to my own administration.
I think James can probably answer the question.
You're absolutely right, Roger, in terms of the latest position is moving on, and therefore when this report was produced, the initial draft of the quarterly information was what was included at that point in time. The actual quarterly monitor will come in next week, will give an updated position on that. But I can't comment on whether it will be that figure or a different figure at the moment. Okay,
nobody else? Councillor Mood, we accept the report. Is that seconded? All those in favour? That's carried. We now move on to item 16, determination of admissions arrangements. Councillor Minory.
Yes, thank you, Leader. This is a very short report, unlike some that we've been considering today, and is almost a formality, really, I trust. What this deals with is the annual requirement for the authority to fix its on the school year. They have been reviewed. There were some quite minor changes proposed, which have been out to consultation as is required. They have been to the local admissions forum, which is supporting changes, and the recommendations are set out on the foot of page 193 and at the top of page 194. And it's my pleasure to move those for approval.
Right, does anybody talk to that? Right, is that seconded? All those in favour, please show accept recommendations in two. Right, that's carried, thank you. We move on now to Transforming Care Partnership Board, Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Leader. The Transforming Care Partnership has been formed as a result of a direct intervention by central government as a response to a lack of activity by other local authorities, excluding ourselves, in their response to out-of-county placements for people with a level of disability that can't be catered for with local hospital specialist provision. We've been working extremely hard since the report came out several years ago around the issue of Winterbourne View, and we've invested in Shropshire considerable sums of money, both in terms of land and money that we've had from the Development Trust, to look at delivering on very much on the model set out within the report of building the right support. So the service model that we've been working to in Shropshire is very much aligned with what is now being pushed ahead by this government initiative. What you have before you is we require approval for the continuing work by this partnership board, which is a partnership of 4 organisations: Telford and Wrekin Council, Telford CCG and Shropshire CCG, and ourselves. And it is that 4-way partnership that's been prescribed by government for us to work towards. I would propose that we move the recommendations in the report, but would caution that there are aspects of the financial arrangements behind these proposals that we are yet to fully explore, because of the nature of cost associated with these individuals. And the way that, in my view, government is looking to shift the cost burden to a more local solution. We have some very considerable potential risks associated with cost. So I do think that it's absolutely appropriate that future reporting is brought back to the Health and Wellbeing Board, and that we keep a very close eye on the movements and the finances of these proposals. Thank you.
Does anybody want to talk to that? No. You will second it? All those in favour of the recommendation 2, please show. Anybody against? That is carried. Move on to item 18 for preparation of supplementary planning documents.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll start off by just talking quickly about the Sandhill, because as I've indicated, I'm sure we're all pleased the Sandhill is now completed and put to bed. To date, we've had no legal challenge that I'm aware of that we thought may happen, and we've checked with the courts also, so we believe there is no challenge to the document. In view of that, the inspector made a number of recommendations that now need to be dealt with, and that why I'm bringing this, lead is because we have to review some documents and develop some documents. And the 3 we've got before us is the Affordable Housing, SPD, Natural Environment and Historic Environment. These reports will be consulted on during March and hopefully be completed by July. I would like to draw attention from members, because I know a lot of members are interested in this, particularly around the housing one, because I've had correspondence recently from the self-build group who don't like the idea of paying affordable housing levy. Well, now's your chance to, if you want to alter that, to get this document changed to read what you want it to say. Clearly, we've got to take in consideration the planning and housing bill that's going through the Lords at the minute. There will be some amendments there. Those that did the training last night with the NFU will also have heard comments around farm workers' dwellings. Again, I think this is another opportunity to feed into this to make sure that we pick up on those issues. So I'm not going to go into it, Leader. The contents of the reports are in appendices A, B and C. You can read them for yourselves. But I do want people to engage in this process, because the times I've had it when people say, I don't like the policy. Then if you don't like the policy, change it, and this is your opportunity.
Okay, does anybody want to speak to that? As seconder for that, is we accept two. All those in favour of accepting the recommendations? Anybody against? It does carry, thank you. If you again now on the application of Wall Parish Council to be considered as neighbourhood plan area.
This is pretty well straightforward. War have indicated they wish to do a neighbourhood plan, and as part of that process they have to apply to the council. We have to advertise it for 6 weeks, which they have done. Interesting with the War Parish Council, they actually want the whole parish area to be part of the neighbourhood plan, and we have no problem with that. I would just draw your attention to a couple of things. Firstly, clearly once they've done their plan, it will come back to the council and we'll go through an assessment, and then clearly as much one like David Turner's in the audience will, as the first one, it has to go the full referendum. But interesting bits again, 6.2, I just highlighted, the National Planning Policy Framework and the neighbourhood plans are not about having no development. It says increasing housing supply, reducing opposition to economic growth, increasing community involvement. I think we'd all recognise those as good features of a neighbourhood plan, so I'd ask for support that we support Warwick producing a neighbourhood plan.
Right. Does anybody want to speak to that? In that case, can you propose and will second? All those in favour of the recommendation, please show. Anybody against? That's carried, thank you. And we move on to item 20, it's membership of Northern Gateway Partnership. Steve Tom.
Thank you, Leader. This paper is a culmination of lengthy discussions with the leadership of Cheshire East Council following the confirmation of the HS2 station hub being located in Crewe. The Northern Gateway Partnership is looking at starting economic growth on the back of that HS2 connection. This paper gives me a seat at that board, which will hopefully result in economic growth prospects for North Shropshire and beyond. So I move.
Does anybody want to speak to that? No? Yes, no? Okay, will somebody second that?
Yeah.
All in favour of the recommendation, please show. Is anybody against? That's carried, thank you. Now we need to go into part 2. Will somebody move the exclusion of the press and public, please? Second is, all those in favour? That's carried. And we ask any member of the public to leave now, please. Thank you.